Welcome back to Spilling Tea. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're talking about relationships. Shocker, I know. But in all seriousness, the difference about today's episode is that we're talking about relationships with a sense of humor. Kind of needed to mix it up because some of our previous episodes were a bit heavy, so I wanted to have fun with this one. Because if you've ever been in a relationship for any length of time, you've probably realized something. Every couple is weird, including yours, including mine. And to that couple that's been married for 30 plus years and swear you've got it figured out, newsflash, you don't. Because every relationship has its own unique dynamic, which quite honestly is what I feel makes relationships fun. One person is constantly making lists, the other person can't find the list. One person is worried about retirement 30 years from now. The other person just ordered something online and has absolutely no idea why. One person is asleep by 9:17 p.m. and the other is suddenly inspired to reorganize the garage at midnight. So today, I want to have some fun with you. Imagine your relationship had its own reality television show. What would it be called? Because when you really think about it, a lot of couples fall into some pretty recognizable character pairings. So today we're talking about some of the most common types of archetypes, why they happen, and how these differences can either make us laugh or drive us absolutely crazy. Let's dive in. Let's start with a classic, the planner and the procrastinator, or as I like to call it, one person packed last Tuesday. You know this couple. The planner has an itinerary, a backup itinerary, a weather contingency plan, emergency phone numbers for everybody involved, and a well-organized safety kit complete with bandages and antibiotic ointments. Meanwhile, the procrastinator, they don't even know where their shoes are. The planner says, we leave Friday at 8 o'clock. The procrastinator hears, at some point in the future, we may eventually depart. The planner says, did you make that appointment? The procrastinator says, I was just about to. They were not just about to, just for reference. They have been just about to for about 7 business days. And I have definitely lived this dynamic before. In a relationship, we used to go to his camp in Tionesta quite a bit. If we were leaving on a Friday, I would probably start packing on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, the clothes were packed. By Thursday, the food was organized and planned for. The truck was loaded and I was mentally on the weekend getaway already. Meanwhile, he would wait until the day we were leaving. And I don't mean just, first thing in the morning. I mean, right before we were supposed to pull out of the driveway. I'd be standing there trying not to have a panic attack while he's casually walking through the house looking for socks and wondering where he put his keys. To this day, I still don't understand how someone can function on the edge like that, but somehow he was always packed and ready to go, and we always left on time, and the world didn't end, although I was pretty sure it was going to a few times. But here's the interesting thing. These relationships often work surprisingly well, this dynamic of the planner and the procrastinator, because the planner creates structure, while the procrastinator creates flexibility. One prevents chaos, the other prevents everyone from having a nervous breakdown over a color-coded spreadsheet. Together, they somehow balance each other out, even if they're driving each other nuts along the way. Next up, the introvert and the social butterfly. Reality show title could be something like, please don't invite more people. The introvert arrives at a party and immediately searches for the nearest exit. while the social butterfly arrives at a party and somehow leaves with 3 new best friends, 2 dinner invitations, and a volunteer position. The introvert spends the first 15 minutes finding the perfect low traffic corner where they can observe humanity from a safe distance. Meanwhile, the social butterfly spends the first 15 minutes introducing themselves to every single person in the room, including people who don't actually live there. The introvert will say something like, "Well, that was a fun evening." And the social butterfly responds with, "Great, I'm glad you think so. Let's go somewhere else now." The introvert is horrified. They've already spent their monthly social energy budget. They're mentally calculating on how many business days it'll take to recover from this interaction. Meanwhile, the social butterfly cannot understand why anyone would voluntarily stay home all weekend. They're thinking, there are people out there to be discovered, and the introvert is thinking, exactly. The introvert calls a quiet evening at home self-care, but the social butterfly calls a quiet evening at home as being grounded, like punished. One person recharges around people, one person recharges away from people. Neither is wrong. They're just operating differently. And some of the funniest marital negotiations happen when these two are trying to decide whether Saturday night should involve 30 guests, a neighborhood block party, and brunch plans for Sunday, or absolutely nobody under any circumstances with all lights off and phones on silent. Oh, friends. Oh, this one gets real fast. The saver and the spender. Reality show title could be something like, "Why did you buy that?" The saver views money as security, whereas the spender views money as possibility. The saver checks account balances for fun. The spender's probably going to avoid them. They don't really want to know because it ruins the vibe for them, so it's always going to be a surprise. The saver has a spreadsheet. Actually, let's be honest, they probably have multiple spreadsheets, color-coded tabs, formulas, backup formulas. But the spender has confidence. The saver sees a sale and says, "We don't really need that." But the spender sees the sale and says, "Look at how much money we're saving if we get this." That's not how math works, but I totally get it. I've been on that side of the coin. The saver hears, "I spent $200, but the spender hears, "I avoided spending $500. I did you a favor. I saved $300. Somewhere an accountant just fainted. I know. The saver wants to compare prices at 4 different stores, but the spender says, "We could actually save on time and just buy it now." The saver considers research a hobby, but the spender considers adding to cart a better hobby. The saver wants to have a budget meeting. The spender wants positive vibes. The saver wants a 6-month emergency fund, but the spender wants a decorative candle that costs $37 for reasons nobody fully understands. But the candle smells like mountain rain at midnight. Nobody has ever smelled mountain rain at midnight and says, "Let's make this a candle." But apparently that scent costs $37. The saver gets excited when the credit card bill is lower than expected. But the spender gets excited when a package arrives that they've completely forgotten that they even ordered. I'm guilty of that one. It's like being surprised by your past self. So fun. Oh, wow, a gift. No, I bought it. Vacation planning is especially entertaining with this dynamic duo. The saver says, "Let's find the best value." But the spender says, we're making memories. The saver says, memories are free. The spender says, not the way I do them. But here's the thing. Many successful couples learn that both perspectives have value. One protects the future. The other helps ensure life isn't spent entirely preparing for tomorrow. The saver reminds the family that financial peace matters, but the spender reminds the family that joy matters too. The trick is finding the balance, not spending recklessly, not saving fearfully, but working together as a team. Even if one person occasionally hides Amazon delivery until the dust settles. Even if the other person notices the delivery immediately because it's already entered into the household tracking sheet. The next dynamic duo that we're looking at is the early bird and the night owl. Maybe a good reality show title could be Good Morning and Stop Talking to Me. This couple is fascinating. One person wakes up ready to conquer the world. They've worked out, they read the news, had a coffee, maybe started some laundry, solved 3 international crises, and it's only 6:15 a.m. The other person is still negotiating consciousness. They're not even awake yet. They're simply available for emergency purposes only. The night owl doesn't understand why anyone would voluntarily wake up that early. And the early bird doesn't understand why anyone would still be awake at midnight. They view each other like completely different species. One person sees 5:30 a.m. and thinks, what a beautiful start to the day. The other person sees 5:30 a.m. and thinks, why am I suddenly aware of the passage of time? I've seen this dynamic up close before. I remember being completely settled in my night by 8:30, blanket on, comfy pajamas on, tea or hot lemon water in hand, tuning into one of my favorite shows, Gilmore Girls. I've already mentally clocked out. If we're being honest, I've probably started thinking about tomorrow's breakfast. Meanwhile, they walk through the room and say, I'm thinking about heading out for a little while. Heading out at 8:30? In my mind, we've already entered tomorrow. At that hour, I'm locking doors, turning off lights, and preparing for sleep. He's putting on shoes and texting friends. I genuinely don't know where people are going that late. The stores are closing, but the couch is open and looks extraordinarily comfy. The decision seems obvious to somebody like me. The early bird will say something like, we have so much daylight, while the night owl will say, but we have so much nighttime. The early bird schedules brunch for 9 a.m. The night owl considers 9 a.m. an unreasonable request. The night owl schedules dinner at 8:30 p.m. and the early bird is checking to see if that's a typo. Their biggest conflict isn't usually time, it's expectations. One is energetic when the other one is exhausted. One wants conversation, the other wants silence. One says, let's do it now. The other says, let's revisit that tomorrow, which, to be fair, is often excellent advice. But eventually they learn an important truth. The early bird doesn't need the night owl to love mornings, just like the night owl doesn't need the early bird to love midnight. They just need to understand that each person has a different rhythm. And if the conversation happens after 9 p.m., the early bird may be nodding politely while retaining absolutely none of the information. And now we have arrived at perhaps the most recognizable reality show of them all. I like to call it CSI Living Room, the clean freak and the hurricane. One person can identify when a pillow has been moved 3 inches, while the other leaves a trail of belongings that can be tracked through every room of the house. If you ever lose them, no worries, just follow the shoes, then the jacket, then the coffee mug or beer can. The clean freak walks through the house and sees clutter immediately. But the hurricane walks through the same house and sees nothing, because to them, everything is exactly where they left it, which is technically true. It's just everywhere. The clean freak doesn't understand how there can be 5 drinking glasses in 5 different rooms. But the hurricane doesn't understand why that's even a problem. They're all being used, eventually. The clean freak straightens a room before guests arrive, but the hurricane strategy is to close the doors, because if a room cannot be seen, it no longer exists. That's just science to them. The clean freak says, "Can you put this away?" But the hurricane says, "I was using that." But the item technically hasn't been touched in 6 weeks. There's a layer of dust on it. The hurricane also has a unique definition of using. If they might need it again someday, it's still an act of rotation to them. The clean freak enjoys vacuum lines in the carpet. I love a good vacuum line. Freshly folded towels, counters clear enough to be able to perform surgery on them. But the hurricane believes a home should look lived in. And by lived in, they sometimes mean looking like a small tornado passed through and decided to stay. The clean freak puts things away immediately. But the hurricane creates what experts refer to as temporary piles. The problem is that some of those temporary piles become permanent historical landmarks within the home. Family members use them for navigation. Turn left at the stack of mail and continue past that laundry mountain. The clean freak experiences peace through order. The hurricane experiences freedom through flexibility. The clean freak says, if everything has a place, you'll always know where it is. But the hurricane says, I know exactly where everything is. And somehow they're right. Until someone cleans it. Neither is intentionally trying to annoy the other. One genuinely feels calmer when everything is neat and orderly. The other genuinely feels comfortable when life isn't organized within an inch of its existence. Yet somehow they become each other's greatest challenge. The clean freak teaches responsibility. The hurricane teaches flexibility. The clean freak helps keep the house functioning, and the hurricane helps everyone remember that perfection isn't the goal. And despite 1,000 conversations about shoes being left by the door and jackets on chairs and dishes that somehow missed the sink by 6 inches, they remain each other's favorite person. Have you ever noticed that even the happiest couples often have some surprisingly different habits and personalities? One loves planning, one loves spontaneity, one likes staying home, one likes going out, one saves, one spends, one organizes, one improvises. And we ask, why does this even happen? Answer is pretty simple. We are attracted to qualities that complement our own. So the planner admires spontaneity. The procrastinator admires organization. The introvert appreciates confidence, while the social butterfly appreciates the calm. In the early stages of relationship, our differences can feel pretty exciting, interesting, even refreshing. You meet someone and think, wow, they're so different from me. They introduce you to new experiences, new perspectives, new ways of looking at the world. The organized person thinks the spontaneous person is fun. The spontaneous person thinks the organized person has their life together. Everybody's impressed. What's the interesting thing is that relationship researchers have discovered something that I found surprising. Couples often differ in their personalities, in their habits, and everyday preferences, but they tend to be remarkably similar in the things that matter the most, like values, beliefs, political stance, life goals, lifestyle expectations. In fact, studies have found that long-term partners are usually much more alike than different. So maybe opposites attract isn't the whole story. Maybe similarities create connection while differences create growth. Because if two people are completely different about everything, that's exhausting. But if two people are exactly the same, that can be boring too. Remember, balance is key. Most healthy relationships seem to have a good mixture of both. Enough similarity to build trust and enough difference to encourage growth. Then somewhere down the road, those differences give us an opportunity to learn skills that we might have never developed on our own without the other person. And that's usually where growth begins. And here's where the real magic happens. The saver learns to enjoy life a little more, while the spender learns to think a little further ahead. The introvert learns to stretch socially, while the extrovert learns that staying home occasionally won't cause permanent damage. The planner learns flexibility, while the spontaneous person learns that calendars are not the enemy. Because relationships aren't about finding someone exactly like you. They're about learning how to appreciate differences without seeing those differences as threats. Research consistently shows that successful couples aren't necessarily those who agree on everything. They're the ones who learn how to navigate their differences with respect, flexibility, and a sense of humor. So maybe the goal isn't finding your opposite or finding your clone. Maybe the goal is finding someone whose strengths balances your weaknesses and who still likes you after witnessing all of them. Here's what I find fascinating. Most relationship problems aren't caused by differences. They're caused by contempt. There's a huge difference. Relationship researcher Dr. John Gottman spent decades studying couples and found that contempt is one of the strongest predictors of relationship breakdown. Not different personalities, not different hobbies, not whether one person is messy and the other is organized. Contempt. That attitude that says, I'm better than you, or there's something wrong with you. Healthy couples can laugh about their differences. Unhealthy couples attack each other over and over again. Healthy planner says, thank goodness somebody around here knows how to relax. An unhealthy planner says, you never have your life together. A healthy social butterfly says, I know you need quiet time. An unhealthy one says, you're no fun. See the difference? One creates connection, the other creates distance. Research has found that successful couples aren't the ones who never disagree. They're the ones who learn how to disagree without losing respect for one another. They assume good intentions and they give each other grace. They recognize that different doesn't automatically mean wrong. The goal isn't to eliminate differences. The goal is to respect them. Because the planner isn't wrong. The spontaneous person isn't wrong. The introvert isn't wrong, and neither is the extrovert. The saver isn't wrong. The spender isn't wrong. The question isn't who is right. The question is, can we appreciate what the other person brings to the table? Because when couples learn to do that, differences stop becoming battlefields and start becoming strengths. So now I want you to think about your own relationship. If it had a reality show, what would its title be? Maybe it's The Thermostat Wars, or Guess What We're Having for Dinner. Who moved my stuff? I thought you said you ordered it. Or maybe you've got a completely different title that's unique to your relationship. Whatever it is, chances are it highlights one of the many differences that make your partnership what it is. And maybe that's not a bad thing, because sometimes the quirks, the frustrations, and the funny little disagreements become the stories that we can laugh about years later. So, what can we take away from today's conversation? First, every relationship has its own unique dynamic. Second, differences aren't necessarily a problem. In many cases, they're part of what makes a relationship stronger. And third, a sense of humor can be one of the most valuable tools a couple has. Because sometimes the healthiest thing that you can do isn't win the argument, it's laugh together about how ridiculous the argument was in the first place. Before we wrap up, here's your challenge. If your relationship had a reality show title, what would it be? I want you to really think about it. Better yet, ask your spouse or partner. Just be prepared for the possibility that their title might be very different from yours. It's going to be fun. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Spilling Tea. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with somebody that might enjoy it as well. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you never miss an episode of Spilling Tea. Also, if you'd like for me to do some research and cover a specific topic, please email me your ideas at ce.spillingtea@gmail.com. Until next time, remember this. The best relationships aren't made up of perfect people. They're made up of people who learn to laugh, to learn to adapt, and how to love each other anyway. Take care of yourselves, my friends, and take care of each other. I'm your host, Colleen. Thank you and good night.